basically all sits in a really big clay pot called a crucible so it doesn't leak out. Because this is just like honey. You can see when it comes right out, goes right off the pipe, you stop spinning. Nice and hot, it's very, very sticky. So we're going to pick up some white glass. And these are all little chips of colored glass. This stuff's called frit. It's the same as the clear. It's just got different mineral and metal oxides inside. Stuff like copper, iron, gold, all that stuff will change the color of the glass. Now one little layer of color is not going to be enough. So we've got to melt this in, get another layer on top. And as we stretch the glass out, all that color is going to fade and stretch with it. So I want to make sure I've got plenty enough, stays a nice, bright, solid white. So everybody's having a good night. Thanks for any fun parade. Watching color melts kind of like watching paint dry, so we'll try and get through this. Like I said, if you guys have any questions, you want to know anything while I'm working, feel free to ask. You do have to yell a little loud. It's kind of hard to hear over all the equipment up here, but I listen to myself talk a lot. So if you guys want to know something, just shout. I'll act like I know what I'm talking about. It's amazing what they'll let you do with a green shirt. This center oven right here, this guy runs at about 2,400 degrees Fahrenheit, nice and warm. Melt all that color in pretty quick. And this guy's heated with natural gas and air. It only takes maybe an hour and a half or so in the morning to get hot. So we leave this one on only when we're here and working, turn it off at night. The main glass furnaces, those guys actually take 3 days to heat up safely. So those stay on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We don't want to turn them off. And the glass will actually expand like water does when it turns into ice. Just a little bit, you can end up cracking those big clay pots on the inside. So that's another reason we want to keep the liquid nice and warm. And if we ever have to cool them down, which does happen once a year, so we actually have to scoop all the glass out, let them crash. And that actually takes 3 days to cool them down, which is why we have two. It takes 3 days to cool it down, a day to fix them if they ever break, and 3 more days to get it to working temperature. So that's why we have two. We don't want to be out of glass. Down for a whole week. Alright, almost ready. You're going to get one more layer on the bottom. The bottom stretches a little more than the sides, so it can't hurt. The next thing we want to do is get everything really screaming hot, so we're going to get the bubble in it. And I do get asked a lot if it takes a lot of air pressure to blow glass. Blow glass. If you have to have really, really strong lungs or anything like that, and you really don't. The most important thing to have is just get everything really screaming hot. The hotter the glass is, the easier it is to do everything to it. So once that's hot enough, we'll just head right over the bench, round it up really well, and give it a little puff, get the bubble started. And it's kind of like blowing up a balloon. It's really just a nice steady pressure. You don't want to actually blow it out too fast, or else you can blow things out unevenly or too thin, and I don't want that to happen. I have to start all over, watch color melt again. We already went over how exciting that can be. So we're going to round this guy up first. We do a lot of shaping with wooden tools. These guys are just bored out waterlogged pieces of cherry wood. And any through wood works really well. Through wood's just have really straight grains. You can use apple, pear, we just happen to get cherry. But that'll give me a nice round shape. You do have to keep them nice and wet so they don't burn out. So get that little puff, get the bubble started.
It looks like a
Pop, pop.
Keep blowing it?
Yeah.
Here we go. Just look for that to expand just a little bit. And it's really important I don't blow it out too thin because I got to get one more layer of glass on top for a couple reasons. One, it's not enough glass to build the size snowman I want to build. And also, white has a really bad tendency to burn if you get it too hot. And I want to make sure it stays nice and bright white. So I'm going to put a little layer of clear glass on top. So we're going to let this guy cool down for a second, get a little more in just a bit. We'll get the bench set up, make sure I've got everything filled in this guy. Alright. And it's maybe 1,600 degrees when I get the bubble inside, so I want to let that cool down to about 1,000. You can tell the heat a couple different ways. It is actually really hard to look at the color even for me. And if you're in a really dark room, if I have all the lights out, you can see that glow start to get darker. But really what I'm looking for is how the glass moves. When it gets down to 1,000 degrees, it doesn't move hardly at all. Really the best way to tell the heat is just feel how much is coming off the surface. Yeah, not my mother's favorite way that I test it, but it does work really well. But I'm too lazy. A little bit more heat out of it, we'll be good to go. Another good way you can tell is when it is ready, almost there. You actually just kind of hit it with a little metal. You can see pretty hard. so it's not going to come off the pipe too fast. We'll grab some more glass, and we'll get moving. And that'll be more than enough glass to build my little snowman. I don't want to move paper thin. And right out of the furnace, it's a little hot to just start blowing it out immediately, so we're going to let it calm down and settle for just a second. Make sure I got the right size block that we need here. And we're just going to keep it nice and round. Let that heat kind of get down to the core, even everything up. Now I want a bottom heavy snowman. Make sure he's not going to tip over too easily. So we're actually going to have to cool the bottom down a little faster. Make sure that stays nice and thick. The head's going to be up near where the pipe is. And we can do that using steel. That big metal table right over there, steel is a great way to take heat out of the glass. So we do that just by rolling it right along the metal, make sure everything stays nice and thick. Blow it up just a little at a time. And you want to blow it out kind of gradually. A little bit larger. Go ahead and stretch this guy some. A little centrifugal force.
Wow.
A little bit larger. Actually, we're a little more heat, and we're going to start cutting our little grooves in. Start making them look a little more like a snowman. Like I said, the most important thing is just get everything really hot. We're going to cut our first groove. This is called a jack line, and it's actually going to be where I'll break it off the pipe later. Another groove for his head. There's one more groove for his middle and bottom section. A little taller. Straighten this bottom section out just a little bit. Alright, we'll grab a little extra heat. Want to blow that out a little larger. Kind of round some things up a little more. And then we're going to be able to start drawing his eyes and his nose and all that good stuff on him. Make him a nice, big, happy snowman. There we go. Rounds things up just a little bit. Flatten the bottom out some. We set our groove right here in the center. Make sure our jack line is nice and clean. That groove needs to be really good and tight. Just kick the bottom in some more. And this is just making sure he's going to sit nice and flat. I don't want him to tip over too easily. All right. Now, I don't know where my orange and black glass was. Hold on 1 second. We stretch these rods earlier in advance. Basically, you just take the colored glass and stretch it just like pulling tabby. So that's what we're going to use to draw. We're going to put one more shot of heat. We're going to use to do that. And I just want to make sure things don't get too cold. Keep it all alive. Alright, so we're going to start with his eyes, his mouth, and his little buttons. Right down his shirt here. Use our torch to do our drawing. Take that down a little bit. Thank you. And we can just use the little rod, it's kind of like a pin. Big old dots on for his eyes. And then use a big smiley. I guess he doesn't need one, but I want him to have one. Kind of goofy looking, but whatever. All snowmen kind of are. Thank you. And use a big carrot nose to do that next. A little larger, so we're just going to build this up a little bit. Thank you. Squeeze that in some.